Hello, welcome back to another of the Richardson lectures on river landscapes in the UK. In this video we're going to be looking at river features that are created by both erosion and deposition. That's meanders and oxbow lakes. So you need to be able to identify and describe these features and also to explain how they form. So what are meanders? Well, meanders are essentially bends in the river, as you can see in this image. But within them we've also got some sub-features that we also need to be aware of. So on the outside of a river bend we have this very steep bank which we call a river cliff, and on the inside of a river bend we've got this gentle slope of sediment which is known as a slip-off slope. Now meanders form in the middle and lower course of the river, and that's because as gradient has decreased, erosion now becomes increasingly lateral, side to side, so more erosion on the banks of the river, causing it to start to bend in its course. And it's also why the valley here is much flatter and eventually becomes flat with a floodplain in the lower course of the river. So how do they form? Well, we're now in the middle course. There's an increased volume of water flowing through our river channel. Tributary, smaller streams have joined the main channel, increase the volume of water, and therefore its erosive power. And because we're at a lower gradient, erosion is lateral, it starts to create these bends in the river's course. Now the speed that the river flows varies across the channel. It's faster on the outside of the bends where the river is thrown around them, and that means we've got more erosion here where the flow is faster. And on the inside of the bend, as you can see here, the water is slower, it's shallower, and as a result the sediment being transported by the river is deposited and helps to build up this slip-off slope. So if you take a look at that in a diagram form, here's our plan view, our look from above. We can see some bends in this river. We've got erosion taking place on the outside by hydraulic action and abrasion, and deposition on the inside of the bend. And we can see that what that looks like in an image here. So here we've got this very steep sided river bank, that's our river cliff, and on the inside where that flow is slower we've got deposition taking place. And because both of these are happening at the same time, what it means is our whole channel is actually shifting, it's migrating in this direction. And that's what meanders do, they migrate over time, they change their position on the floodplain. So we'll now take a look at that in a diagram cross-section view. So we can now take a look at this in diagram form, with a plan view from above and a cross-section across our channel. So erosion is going to be taking place here on this outer bank where our flow is fastest. So if we draw on our flow, okay, this water is being thrown around those bends, hence why we've got the fastest flow on the outside, and that's causing erosion. Whereas on the inside, where that flow is very slow and shallow, sediment is going to build up and it forms these banks of sediment we call slip-off slopes on those inner bends. Now if we take a look at what that looks like in cross-section, i.e. if we were to stand in the channel and look upstream and see the shape of the river channel, it would look something like this. So we'll take a cross-section, point A, point B, and we'll do a cross-section through our channel at this point. So I'll mark on points A and points B. So at point A we've got our river cliff. This is where the river is undercutting the river bank, creating that steep cliff. And on the inside of our bend the channel is much shallower because that's where we've got deposition taking place. And that we can see, we can draw that on here as a slip-off slope, this bank of sediment that's building up on that inner bank there. And what this means is our river channel is actually asymmetrical in shape, with our river cliff here and our slip-off slope here. So now we'll take a look at oxbow lakes, which are a related feature to meanders. So an oxbow lake is a horseshoe-shaped lake that forms after a meander bend is cut off, and we can see examples of these lakes here. And on this image, where we've got two big meander bends, we can see where an oxbow lake is likely to form in the future. This area here, this narrow area between these two bends, is the meander neck. and once this breaks through, eventually, this loop will be cut off and will be left to form an oxbow lake. So let's take a look more detail about how that happens. So over time, because we've got that fastest flow on the outside, leading to the maximum erosion taking place there, and deposition on the inside, the meandered bends get closer and closer together. So this area here, this neck, is where we're going to see the break. And that usually takes place during a period of particularly high water volume and velocity, and that's usually in a flood event. So we have a big flood comes along, it will cut through the channel, through the bend, and what that will leave behind is this new straighter course river and an oxbow lake. So we'll finish off by looking at a couple of exam questions on this topic. So we've been given an image here, figure 13, it's a photograph of the River Severn and its valley. And for 1 mark we've been asked to describe one feature of the meander at point Y on figure 13. Well, here's point Y, and we see this light brown colour on the side of the river channel. Now we should all now be able to recognise that as sediment that's been deposited. We know it's on the inside bend. So it's only 1 mark. We can get away with a short answer here. For stating it's a slip-off slope, we can say that it's an area of deposition. The exam board here actually also awarded a mark for just specifying that it's on the inner bend. But really, to me, the best answers here are actually picking out this feature of deposition where point Y is pointing to. And then a 4-mark question. This one says, explain how river meanders may change over time. So they're not strictly asking you how they form or why they form, but how they change over time. So, because it's an explain question, your answer needs to give reasons why meanders change. That's the explain part. And as a result of that, you must also explain the processes involved, what erosion processes are involved when a wise deposition taking place, if you're going to access the upper marks level 2 on this question. Now actually, to me there's sort of 2 optional routes you could take with this answer. The first one is just to focus on how meanders migrate over time, and in doing that you'll be explaining about how we've got fast flow causing erosion on the outside of the bend, slow flow causing deposition on the inside of the bend, and which overall leads to the meander changing its position. Now as part of that, when you're talking about erosion, you should always be referring to those specific erosion processes, hydraulic action and abrasion, and giving a brief definition of those. The other option about change over time is how meanders eventually form oxbow lakes. So explaining how as the meanders develop and get bigger, that neck gets smaller until eventually it's cut through to form an oxbow lake. And again, you'll be referring to those specific processes of erosion. You'll be talking about difference in speed of the water on either side of the channel in order to lead to that oxbow lake formation. So that's it for this video. Next time we're going to finish off looking at river landforms by looking at the landforms that are created solely by the depositional processes.